Hawajibana, and welcome to this lesson today. My name is Mr. Maniki from Honesta Boys, and I will be taking you biology form 2. Our topic today is respiration. Respiration. So welcome, and I hope you'll be able to understand the concept of respiration. So we will begin by defining what is respiration, and I have said here, it is the process by which substances are chemically broken down. Substances are chemically broken down in living cells. So the first thing you realize that respiration is a characteristic of living things. So they are chemically broken down to release these products. The first one is energy. Number 2, carbon dioxide. Number 3, water. And sometimes ethanol, or what is called alcohol. So the other thing you need to know is that you can be asked a question. Where does respiration take place in living cells? And the answer is, it takes place in the organelle called mitochondrium. Mitochondrium. And many mitochondria are called mitochondria. So you need to be very careful with the spelling there. Mitochondria. Mitochondrium is one. When there are many, we call mitochondria. This is the organelle where respiration takes place. So we need to study the structure of the mitochondrium. So the structure of the mitochondrium is illustrated in my chart here. As you can see, it is made up of the following layers. The first one is the outer layer. We have the inner layer, which is called the inner membrane. And the inner membrane is also folded, as you can see. And these foldings are called crystal. And again, I need to help you understand there that crystal are many. Plural. Crystal. But one of the folding is called a crystal. That is one of them. The other thing we need to understand, there is a space in here which is called matrix. And this space is filled with a fluid. It is a cavity that is fluid filled. Okay? It is a cavity that is fluid filled. And the work of this matrix, this is where respiratory enzymes are found. What about the cluster? The cluster are foldings that increase surface area for the attachment of respiratory enzymes. Remember, we have said that living cells, in the living cells, food is chemically broken down. There is the presence of respiratory enzymes. Where are these enzymes attached? Where are they found? These enzymes are attached on the foldings called cluster. They are found on the foldings called crystal. So this is the structure of the mitochondrium. So I need to help you understand what are the functions of this. For example, the outer membrane. This one, it controls. Okay? It controls what enters and leaves. Outer membrane controls what enters or leaves the mitochondria. So whatever will enter inside or outside will be controlled by the outer membrane. What about the inner membrane? The inner membrane, these are folded into cluster. The inner membrane are folded into cluster. Remember, many clusters. And what is the function of cluster? They increase surface area for attachment. Increase surface area for attachment or respiratory enzymes. Respiratory enzymes. And these respiratory enzymes are the ones that catalyze, speed up the rate of chemical reaction. What about the matrix, the fluid-filled cavity? This is where enzymes are located. Respiratory enzymes that catalyze. Respiratory enzymes that catalyze reactions are found. So what we mean by to catalyze? It is to speed up. To speed up the rate. To speed up the rate. So learner, you need to understand that this is the structure of the cell membrane. Again, if you're asking an exam, you must be able to understand, to label, and to know the meaning of the mitochondrion. Again, the outer membrane controls what enters and leaves the mitochondrion. Number two, the inner membrane, which is folded into what? Cluster. Many called cluster. And one is called a cluster. And I've said, what is the function of the cluster? I've said it has respiratory enzymes. And these respiratory enzymes are the ones that speed up the rate of respiration. Number three, I've said we have the matrix. The matrix. It is a fluid-filled cavity. And what is the function of that? I have said the function of the matrix. This is where the enzymes that catalyze the reactions are found. Now, we want to move on now and talk about the types of respiration. Which are the types of respiration? So move with me to talk about types. Types of respiration. Types of respiration. Types of respiration. Number one, we have what is called aerobic respiration. Number two, we have anaerobic respiration. In the interest of time, today we will be discussing one of them, which is aerobic respiration. So we begin by aerobic. Aerobic respiration. So now we have aerobic respiration here, and aerobic respiration is basically the process by which food is broken down to release energy in the presence of oxygen. That is the difference. Again, aerobic respiration. This is where food is broken down, and this food can be what? Can be glucose. This food can also be what? Amino acids that have been broken down after digestion, and they are broken down in the presence of what? Oxygen. To release what? Energy, water, and carbon dioxide. So we are saying it is the process by which food substances, for example, such as glucose, are broken down in the presence of oxygen. That is the key word. In the presence of oxygen. In the presence of oxygen. And what are the products here? To release energy, water, and carbon 4 oxide. Carbon 4 oxide. So if you're asking an exam, what are the products of aerobic respiration? What will you say? Number 1, energy. Number 2, water. Number 3, carbon 4 oxide. Those are the 3 major products of aerobic respiration. And if you are told to distinguish between aerobic and anaerobic, the key word is in aerobic respiration, food is broken down in the presence of oxygen. So the other thing I need to mention here is that this energy is stored in the form of a chemical substance that is called adenosine triphosphate. So energy is stored in form of a chemical substance called adenosine triphosphate, which is abbreviated as ATP. That is how energy is stored after respiration. It is important to note that this energy is released in small amounts. Why? It's because a lot of heat energy would burn the cells. If all the energy is produced at the same time, this energy can burn the cell. So this energy is always released in small amounts. The energy is released in small amounts. So rather you need to understand that if this energy is released in large amounts, it is going to burn the cells. So it should be released in small amounts. So I want to write an equation here to summarize, aerobic respiration. And so I will take glucose, which is C6H12O6, which is oxidized in the presence of oxygen, 6 molecules of oxygen. It is going to give us what? Number 1, carbon 4 oxide plus water plus what? Energy. And I've said this energy is always in form of ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. So I want to summarize. There are two types of aerobic respiration. We have the first phase and the second phase. Lana, the first phase of aerobic respiration. This is where it takes place in the cytoplasm. That is the first thing. It takes place in the cytoplasm. In this case, no oxygen is required. Now, this is the summary. Glucose, in the first phase of which is called glycolysis, glucose is broken down into what? Pyruvic acid. And then this pyruvic acid, because of lack of oxygen, because there's no oxygen, is later divided into what? Lactic acid in animals and also in plants. It gives rise to what? Either. So, glycolysis, which is the first phase of aerobic respiration, it occurs in the cytoplasm. No oxygen is required. And in this case, glucose, as you can see in this chart, it is broken down partially into what? Pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid is a 3-carbon. It's a 3-carbon compound, which is illustrated as what? Lana CH3CH2COOH. That is a 3-carbon compound called pyruvic acid. Now, in animals, it is broken into what? Lactic acid, and in plants, ethanol. And it is important to note that 1 molecule of glucose will give rise to 2 molecules of energy. Now, Lana, we have the second phase of aerobic respiration, which is also called Klebs Cycle. Klebs Cycle is also called Citric Acid Cycle. Where does it occur? Citric acid cycle occurs in the mitochondrion. The other one I said in the cytoplasm. So this one occurs in the mitochondria. So what is the difference between the glycolysis and Klebs cycle? In this case, oxygen is available. Oxygen is available. And what happens? The pyruvic acid is broken down in a series of reactions to give what? Energy, water, and carbon dioxide. Again, pyruvic acid is broken down in a series of reactions. As you can see, I've written something here, acetyl coenzyme A. But what you need to understand is that there are a series of chemical reactions that break down the pyruvic acid from glycolysis phase into what? Energy, water, and carbon dioxide. But in glycolysis, we have intermediate products, lactic acid granules and aerobic plants. So this is the summary. Pyruvic acid in the presence of oxygen, and all these things must take place in the presence of what? Enzymes. In the presence of enzymes. Into what? Carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Water and energy. So, my learner, I want to bring you to an understanding of the conditions that are required in this phase. In this phase, what is required? What are the conditions? What are the conditions? Number one, glucose must be available. Conditions. Conditions. What are the conditions? Number one, glucose. Number one, glucose must be available. So as you can see here, pyruvic acid. But what is important is that glucose must be available. Number two, oxygen. And you have seen oxygen there. Remember we are summarizing the conditions. Number three, enzymes. Look at this, enzyme. So number two, oxygen must be available. Number three, what is available? Enzymes. And I've said the work of enzymes is to do what? It is to speed up the rate of chemical reactions. Number four, there must be what? Number four, there must be optimum temperature. Optimum. The key word is optimum. Remember, enzymes are protein in nature. Optimum temperature. Enzymes are protein in nature. So those are the conditions that are required. So, learner, what have we learned today? What have we learned today? Today we have learned about respiration. We have said what is respiration. We have said it is the process by which food is broken down in living cells to produce energy, carbon dioxide, water, or alcohol. We have also said, learner, that it takes place where? In the mitochondrion. In the mitochondrion. And then we have come to understand the structure of the mitochondrion. The outer membrane, the inner membrane, the crystal, and the matrix. And then later on we have studied the types of respiration. We have said what? Aerobic respiration. Number two, anaerobic respiration. And I've said, today our emphasis is on what? Aerobic respiration. What have we said? It is the process by which food substances, such as what? Glucose, are broken down in the presence of oxygen. I've said again, the emphasis is what? Presence of oxygen. And what are the products? One, energy. Which is in which form? Adenosine triphosphate. Number two, learner, water. Number three, carbon dioxide. That is the summary of aerobic respiration. And I've said that this energy is stored in form of what? Adenosine triphosphate. And I've given a summary equation here in the presence of oxygen. So as I wind up, I want to give you a question. I want to give you a question that you can be able to look at as I summarize this topic. And this is the question I want you to look at. I want you to look at this question. What is the importance, Lana? What is the importance? Now that we know what is aerobic respiration, I want you to look at this question. What is the importance of the energy produced during respiration? Again, what is the importance of the energy produced during respiration in our bodies? Remember, we have said this energy is what? It is released in small amounts. And the reason is what? To prevent burning the cells. Because if it is produced in large amounts, this energy can essentially burn the cells. And we don't want these living cells to die. Why will they be burnt? It is because they are proteinous in nature. They are proteinous in nature. So it is very much important that learner, you may be able to understand that the membranes of these enzymes are proteinous in nature, so they will be destroyed. Enzymes are sensitive to changes in temperature and pH. Enzymes are sensitive to changes in temperature and pH. So they can be destroyed by much heat, and we don't want that to happen. And also we have looked at the conditions that are necessary for the second cycle. What are the conditions? Glycolysis. The conditions are what? Glucose. Of course, glycolysis is the first phase. The second phase, glucose. Number 2, oxygen. Enzymes, optimum temperature. So when you attempt that question I've given you, will be in a position to handle this topic. Again, I will pass you through very fast through this summary of glycolysis. The first phase is called what? Glycolysis. Where does it take place? In the cytoplasm of the cell. What is the condition there? There is no oxygen required. No oxygen required. What happens in the glycolysis phase? Glucose is broken down into an intermediate compound called what? Pyruvic acid. And I've said pyruvic acid is a 3-carbon compound. And pyruvic acid is later broken down into 2 intermediate products. What are these products? Lactic acid in animals. And then in plants we have ethanol. I want to let you know that this lactic acid is the one that accumulates in the muscles. And when it accumulates in the muscles, it causes what is called muscle clamps. Muscle clamps. Some people talk about muscle pull. So if you have ever got what is called a muscle pull or a muscle clamp, what causes it? It is the accumulation of lactic acid. The accumulation of lactic acid. And in the topic of gaseous exchange, you are told how is that lactic acid removed. That is why after a race, you find someone is panting heavily. Why? They want to get more oxygen, which is called oxygen debt, to remove the accumulated lactic acid, which causes muscle clamps, also called muscle pull. Now, glycolysis, I've said that the end product, 1 molecule of glucose, will give rise to what? 2 molecules of energy in form of adenosine triphosphate. The second phase, learner, in summary, I said it's also called what? Klebs Cycle. I've said it's also called citric acid cycle. Where does it take place? In the mitochondrion. What happens here? The pyruvic acid goes through a series of reactions, which I summarize here as one compound, acetyl coenzyme A. But remember, there are many series of enzymes here, controlled by many enzymes. And these reactions give rise to what? Energy in form of adenosine triphosphate, water, and carbon dioxide. And I have an equation here to represent all that. Pyruvic acid, in the presence of oxygen, by the help of enzymes, will give rise to what? Carbon dioxide, water, and energy. So that is the end of the topic respiration, and specifically an aerobic respiration. So my learner, until next time, I want to repeat my question again. What is the importance of the energy produced during respiration in our bodies? So when you look at that question, in other words, you will be summarizing aerobic respiration. God bless you, learner. Until next time, thank you. Keep safe.